Hello and welcome to Train Signal. You're watching Installing Veeam Monitor. In this lesson, we're going to do two things. We're going to first talk about the system requirements to use Veeam Monitor, and then I'll show you how to download and install Veeam Monitor. With that, let's get started. So the system requirements to use Veeam Monitor, first off, are that you need a virtual infrastructure, either VI3 with ESX version 3.x or vSphere 4 with ESX version 4. Now, in either case, vCenter is optional, but it's highly recommended because it allows you to make one connection to the vCenter server to learn about the entire virtual infrastructure. Of course, you need a decent CPU on a relatively new server. This application is going to be collecting data about your entire virtual infrastructure and putting it in a SQL database, so you want something relatively decent to run this application on. You at least need 512 megabytes of RAM or 2 gigabytes of RAM. Those are the minimum system requirements. The 2 gig is if you're running SQL Server local. And of course, in the real world, you're going to want a lot more RAM than that. The minimum disk requirements are 50 megabytes or 260 megabytes if you're running SQL Express local. And again, you're going to want a lot more room than that in the real world. And then your 100 megabyte is the minimum NIC connection. You'll need a 32 or 64-bit Windows operating system, starting with Windows XP Service Pack 3, all the way up to the latest and greatest Windows 2008 R2 or Windows 7. You'll also need the .NET Framework installed, and you'll either need SQL Server 2005 or 2008. And in our case, we'll be using SQL Server 2005 Express, which is included with the addition of Veeam Monitor that we'll download. So in this video, what I'll be installing Veeam Monitor on is a virtual machine running in my virtual infrastructure, and I have a virtual machine created with Windows 2008 R2. Let's see, it has a gig Ethernet connection on the ESX host. There's plenty of disk space. I think there's 50 gigs on a thin allocated virtual disk, which you may not want to use in production, and I've got 2 gigs of RAM allocated to the virtual machine. Alright, so now let's talk about downloading and installing Veeam Monitor. Honestly, it's a very simple application to download and install, and you'll see that here for yourself in just a minute. There's a URL to go and download it directly. You'll have to register for a free account to download it. Feel free to download Veeam Business View, which is an application to allow you to view your infrastructure, how your business is organized. It allows you to run reports and view charts and graphs inside Veeam Monitor based on whatever grouping that you want to create for your virtual infrastructure. For example, if you wanted to create a grouping called Marketing Virtual Machines and run performance reports on that, you could if you use the free Business View. Now, you can install the server and client separately. By default, when you install Veeam Monitor Server, it will install the client locally, and then you might want to come back and install that Veeam Monitor client on another PC, maybe your desktop PC, if you're the virtual infrastructure administrator. So with that, let's get started installing Veeam Monitor. I'm going to tab over to my web browser on this virtual machine. Alright, so I'm here on Veeam.com, V-E-E-A-M, and I'm going to click on the Veeam Monitor link underneath Products. You should also know that there is a free edition of Veeam Monitor, but it doesn't have a lot of features that the Veeam Monitor Commercial Edition offers, such as historical performance monitoring, with that one being the most important feature. So I'll click on Veeam Monitor, the Commercial Edition here, and then what we'll do is we'll go down and we'll download a trial. Now, before I click that, notice that there is a link here to the documentation. The full documentation is here, including the data sheet, what's new, release notes, user guide, and system requirements. Now, when we download Veeam Monitor, some of these documents will be included in that download. So I'll click Download here. And if you haven't registered before, you'll need to click on the New User Registration here and activate your account. It's all completely free. I'll just log in. And here we can see that we can download Veeam Monitor version 4.5. It's 89 megabytes, and to save us some time, I've already downloaded this file. If I go down here to my Windows Explorer, let's see, I put it in a drive here called Y, my Veeam software repository, and I've got Veeam Monitor right here. I just extracted the files, and this is what was inside. The Veeam Monitor release notes, the user guide, and Veeam Monitor VI. That's actually what we're going to run. If I double-click that, it says that this is the Veeam Monitor for VMware Setup Wizard. I'll just click Next here. I'll accept the license agreement. And here you can choose to do either the full installation or the client only. Now for the first installation, of course, you need to do the full install because that includes the server and the client, and you need the server in order to use the client on a future installation. I'll click Next here. And what we'll do is use the existing SQL Server 2005 Express Edition, which is included with Veeam Monitor. I'll say Next. And now here you need to select your scalability options for Veeam Monitor. If you have fewer than 50 ESX servers, you would take the typical option here. If you have more than 50 ESX hosts, you would take the advanced option. And this is just to tell Veeam Monitor what size of database and the number of counters that it should create. I'll say Next here. We'll take the default location for Veeam Monitor installation and say Next. And then finally we'll opt to install the Veeam Reporter Viewer, create a desktop icon and quick launch and say Next. And finally we'll click Install. It'll take just a minute to install Veeam Monitor. It's actually really quick. Now at this point the installation's almost done. It's asking us to provide a license file. If you do not provide a license file and just click Next here, that will make this into the Veeam Monitor free edition, and it won't keep any historical statistics, as well as a number of other limitations, but it will run indefinitely. We want to use every feature, including historical stats, so I'm going to click Browse here, and I'm going to locate the license file that I purchased from Veeam. Here's my Monitor license file. I'll say Open there. I'll say Next. And it tells us that the Veeam Monitor has been successfully installed. We'll click Finish to complete the installation. And then we need to perform a quick log off and log back on before starting the Veeam Monitor user interface. I'll say Yes to do that now. Alright, we logged off and logged back on the Veeam Monitor server and it's ready to run. I'll double click Veeam Monitor there. And here we go. This is Veeam Monitor, and the first thing we'll do in the next lesson is to start configuring Veeam Monitor to connect it to our Virtual Center server and our virtual infrastructure. So with Veeam Monitor successfully installed, let's go back to our slides. And that brings us to the end of this video covering installing Veeam Monitor. In this video you learned the system requirements as well as how to download and install Veeam Monitor. It really was just as easy as I promised, I hope you saw. And I'm sure you won't have any problems with it installing it on your server. Thanks for watching this video covering the installation of Veeam Monitor.